Hello, boys and girls. We're going to have another few chapters of The Bridge Home, chapters 7 to 11, and I hope you remember. Let's just recap a little bit of what we read last time about the two sisters, Viji and Rukku, who ran away from home and caught the bus into the big city, and they had to run away from the bus driver who had bad intentions. He wanted to trick them into offering them a job and to show them around the city, but they managed to shake him off, and then they found some help from the kind tea shop auntie who gave them a little bit of food. So let's find out in the next chapters where they find a little puppy and see if they find somewhere to sleep. Right. Chapter 7, The Lost Puppy. Dusk was beginning to fall as we wandered out into the narrow street. My courage fell too with every step. So it was beginning to get dark already and they hadn't found a place to sleep. So Viji was beginning to get a little bit anxious. Fingering what was left of our money, I wondered how long it would last us. I regretted being too proud to share our story with Tea Shop Auntie. I should have asked her for help with finding a safe place to stay. "Find Marapachi," you demanded. "She's gone," I said. "You threw her at the bad man, remember?" "Marapachi," you repeated louder. "You saved me, Rukku. You were a hero." "Marapachi," you yelled. "We have better things to worry about than your doll," I burst out. "Amma," you turned your back to me. "Amma." "And she's not here either. We just have each other now." You plopped down right there on the dusty street. "Fine. Sit." "Rukku wants Amma, Rukku wants Marapachi." "Shouting's not going to bring them here." You scowled at me, and I spun on my heel and strode away, hoping you'd follow, but you didn't. I waited at the end of the street for a while, but you seemed quite content to stay where you were. You won that round. When I came back for you, you were bending over a skinny puppy with huge dark eyes. "Get away from that puppy, Rukku. It might bite." At the sound of my voice, the puppy thumped its tail. It wagged its tail. You stroked it tenderly with just one finger. "Come on, please," I said. You started humming to the puppy, and it licked you with its pink tongue. "I'm really sorry, Rukku." You made no move to show me you'd heard, though you usually forgave me if I sounded apologetic, if I sounded sorry. I crouched down beside you. The puppy looked right at me, and his nose crinkled, like he was smiling. I couldn't help petting him. His coat was smooth, and he wiggled and sniffed my hand. "Rukku's dog." I sighed. "We don't have enough to eat or a proper place to sleep yet, and you want to adopt this orphan." "Kuti," you announced, tapping his head. "Kuti." "Kuti? That's what we're calling him?" I knew there was no point trying to get you to leave the puppy behind, and I didn't want to leave Kuti behind either, because he'd smiled at me and because he made you so happy. Your eyes were as shiny as the puppy's wet nose. "Okay," I said, "but now we need to find a place to sleep." "Come." You stood and beckoned to the puppy. "Come, Kuti." Kuti pricked up his ears and stood attentively at your side, like he understood you perfectly. "I have no idea where to go," I admitted. "You choose." And you broke into the widest grin I'd ever seen and started marching down the street. Realizing with a twinge of guilt that I'd never let you lead before, I followed you. On one street corner, 3 boys had already settled in for the night, huddled together on a tattered straw mat behind a dumpster. We saw another group of kids still at work, trying to sell newspapers to people who were stopped in their cars at a traffic light. It felt good to have Kuti trotting close to our heels along the dark streets. He was probably too small to scare away strangers, but surely he'd bark in warning if someone tried to sneak up on us when we went to sleep. So she felt safe having Kuti there, if we ever found a place to sleep. We wandered onto a wider road that led to a river, and 2 bridges spanned it. One was well lit with traffic rumbling across it, and the other was dark and deserted. We headed to the deserted bridge. Deserted means empty. Nobody else around. Concrete lines stood on either side of what must have once been the grand entrance, and a crumbling concrete wall ran along its sides. Concrete is made out of cement and stone mixed. The perfect spot to stay overnight, I decided. Probably the most secluded spot we could get in the city, away from everybody. Careful, I warned, as we picked our way around the holes in the ruined bridge. Pretty, you pointed at the river that glittered like crushed glass far below us. Halfway across the bridge, I saw a makeshift shelter. Someone had made a tent with a tarpaulin. Tarpaulin is a strong waterproof material. Someone had made a tent. Rocks held one edge of the tarpaulin in place along the wall of the bridge, and the tent sloped down to the ground, where its other edge was held down with an old car tire. A cleverly built home with one wall and a sloping roof and 2 entrances. Looks like it was abandoned ages ago, I said. Want to stay here? Rukku wants to eat. We gobbled the bananas, and Kuti and I finished off the vadais. Our food was gone before I realized I should have saved something for the next day. It was beginning to get dark, but I could make out a boy marching up the bridge. He reminded me of a sunflower. Matted hair that looked like it had never met a comb stuck out like petals around a face that seemed much too large for his skinny body. He wore an oversized yellow t-shirt and a raggedy pair of shorts, and held a bag and a wooden stick. "Vanakkam," I greeted him, relieved that he was smaller than us. "Go away," he said, instead of echoing Vanakkam in return, the greeting. "You're polite, aren't you?" I said. "If you stay here, my boss will come and—" He punched in the air. "Tushum, tushum, he'll show you." "Tushum," you imitated him, repeating his nonsense word. "Tushum, tushum." He smiled at you. Then he turned to me and said in a tone he seemed to think was impressive, "My boss is coming with the rest of our gang." "Your gang?" I peered into the gloom. No one else as far as I could see. 20 boys, all 10 times taller than me. "You're a bad liar," I said. "Ow!" You pointed at a scab on his knee. "Don't worry," he said to you, and he sat down, cross-legged, pulling his t-shirt over his scraggy knees. "It doesn't hurt any more." Kuti sniffed at the boy and licked him. "My name's Mutu," he said. "What's your dog called?" "Rukku's dog," you said with pride. You sat right next to Mutu as though he'd invited us to visit. "Kuti." He patted Kuti tentatively, a little bit carefully. He was unsure whether the dog was friendly. Then he glanced behind us. "Look, that's my boss." A boy at least a head taller than me, though just as skinny as Mutu, was walking up the bridge. He had a wild mop of red-tinged black hair. A sack was slung across his shoulder, and he held a stick that was much sturdier and longer than Mutu's. They're carrying sticks probably to protect themselves. "Who are you?" the tall boy said. "Who are you?" I said, drawing myself up to my full height. "I told you," Mutu said. "He's the big boss." "What are you doing on our bridge?" the boy said. "Your bridge? Why didn't you build a better one, like that?" And I pointed at the newer bridge. Kuti trotted over, sniffed at the tall boy's bare feet, and then wagged his tail. "Rukku," you gave the tall boy a warm grin and poked yourself on the ribs, pointing, "Rukku," and then jabbed me, "Viji." "I'm Arul," and he flashed you a smile and then tried to look all stern. "We live here." "So do we," I said. "Get out," Arul said, but so weakly that I guessed he was just putting on a show of protesting because Mutu was watching. "We're already outside, in case you haven't noticed." I waved at the starry sky above and the twinkling river below. And I don't need your permission to sleep here. It's not like you inherited this from your dad. Get your own tarp, he said, and it was as good as a yes. So the boys were allowing them to join them on the bridge. Thank goodness. You going to let them stay, Arul? Muti said. We're staying. And I gave him a smug smile. No letting. Arul tickled Kuti behind the ears and then disappeared into his tent. Mutu crawled in after him. I found a relatively rubble-free patch of ground. Rubble meaning little bits of broken stones. So she found a patch that didn't have too many little stones on it and spread out our sheet. Not that it made the ground any softer. Amma, you said, and looked all around us, as though our mother might pop out of the river and fly up through a hole in the bridge. Amma. I put my arms around you, but you kept crying her name. Kuti snuggled up to you, and you clutched one of his paws. He didn't seem to mind. Hugging him close, like you used to hug your doll, you finally lay down on our sheet. Story? Maybe hearing the familiar words would help to take your mind off Amma and my mind off the bumpy ground. Not wanting the boys to overhear, I lowered my voice to a whisper. Once upon a time, 2 sisters ruled a magical land. Viji and Rukku, you put in? Yes, us. We used to be princesses, the 2 of us. We slept on soft pink pillows in a beautiful palace. Every morning we'd wake to the sound of birds singing and the sight of peacocks dancing. White lotus flowers shone bright as stars in the lake at the center of our green garden, and from this lake a silver stream slipped out beyond our palace gates into the rest of our kingdom. No one in our kingdom was ever thirsty because everyone could drink from that sparkling stream, and no one in our kingdom was cruel. Grown-ups never fought, and every child had all the dolls and toys they ever wanted. Dolls, you echoed. I was afraid you'd ask for Maripache again, but you didn't start fussing. Every morning you made beautiful bead necklaces, and I read you stories. We had hundreds and hundreds of books, and every afternoon we rode horses that could gallop so fast we felt like we were flying. Usually I told you more about our horses or the wonderful fruit that grew in the orchard, but that evening I changed the story and added a new part. One day an angry demon cast a spell over our kingdom. The plants withered, the plants died, birds stopped singing, and the stream dried up. And the demon tried to catch us, but we ran away and found a place, this new place where he can't find us. We won't stay here forever. When we're older and stronger, we'll leave, and together we'll fight the demon, break his curse, and return to our lost kingdom, where we'll be princesses again. Viji and Rukku, I finished, always together. Viji and Rukku together, you asked? Always. Viji and Rukku, you repeated, always together. We had no roof or walls to keep us safe, and that probably should have worried me more. But you seemed content. You pointed at the sky. Look, Viji. No roof means we get the best view of the pretty stars, right, Rukku? I said. Pretty, you agreed. We lay shoulder to shoulder and watched the stars sparkle, while Kuti slept beside us. Your eyes sparkled too, and the light inside them pierced through my fog of worry. So Viji was happy because Rukku seemed content and happy. A cool breeze rose from the river, waking me and riffling the edges of my skirt. My stomach growled like a starving tiger. At home the 2 of us would have been up making breakfast. We'd been poor, but at least we always had something to eat. When you woke, I knew you would be hungry too. Maybe we could go to the tea shop and ask if we could work there again. Kuti woke with a snort. He snuffled at your face until you sat up. Amma, you murmured. Just us, remember. Go home now, Viji. We live here now, Rukku, our own place, like in our story. Palace? Kind of. We rule ourselves here, so it's as good as being princesses. You lifted your head high and you surveyed the ruined bridge. You looked around like a princess. Down by the river bank, people were bathing. I spotted the boys by the river's edge. From our bundle, I grabbed a change of clothes and our toiletries, towels, and a water bottle. We walked down to the water with Kuti at our heels. Up close, the river was not beautiful. It looked more grey than silver. We watched Aloud dive off a rock, his heels kicking up. With a joyful yip, Kuti splashed in, then ran back out to greet Mutu, who was still standing on the rock. Mutu laughed as Kuti shook his coat, sending a shower of drops onto Mutu's face. Now I don't need to wash, he said. What a thoughtful dog you are. Good dog, you agreed. Rukku's dog. Want to come for a swim? Mutu grinned at you. The water's nice and cool. No, I said, Rukku can't swim. Let her have some fun. Arul was wading to the shore. We won't take her where it's deep. Mutu cupped some water and let it dribble down your back. You giggled and slid into the river with all your clothes on. Don't worry, Arul said. We'll see that she's safe. You splashed one another for a while, ignoring the litter that floated by, and Kuti swam around you in circles. If you hadn't been enjoying yourself so much, I would probably have dragged you out. Part of me was irritated that you'd gone right ahead to bathe with the boys without me, but then it was the first time I'd seen you make friends so easily. It was a nice change after years of meeting kids who hadn't been kind or warm to either of us, except for Subu, whom Arul resembled a little. Resembled means he looked a bit like him. Want some soap? I asked the boys. None for me, Mutu said. I smell good enough already. But Arul thanked me, and I waded into the water, and we started washing ourselves and the clothes we were wearing, so they kind of had to bath with their clothes on. When we got out of the water, I gave the boys one of our towels, and Arul accepted it gratefully, though Mutu said he preferred to dry off in the sun. Behind a bush, you and I peeled off our wet clothes and changed into the dry skirts and blouses that I'd brought. With our fingers, we scrubbed tooth powder on our teeth and rinsed it off with the last of the water left in our plastic bottle. Back at the bridge, I wrung out our wet clothes and towels and weighted them down with stones to dry in the sun. Hungry, you announced. Sorry, I said. Don't have anything. We'll go find something. No banana? No, sorry. Papaya, you suggested? No. Guava? No. No pomegranate, no jackfruit, no oranges, no sweet limes, no nothing. No, you repeated, faster, louder, and more annoyed each time. No. No, Mutu joined in. You stopped and stared at him. Let's sing together, Rukku, he said. No. Kuti lifted his nose and let out a musical howl. Woo! No, you laughed and clapped your hands. No. I'd seen you laugh before, but never quite like this. This was the first time you'd broken into a laugh halfway through a tantrum. A tantrum is a bit of a fussing fit. And the first time you laughed without hiding your mouth behind your hands, as if you were scared to be happy. Now you threw back your head the way Mutu was doing, and as the three of you howled away like a pack of jackals, hungry and homeless though you were, I felt I'd done the right thing by leaving. The city was waking up as we walked towards the tea shop. Women were busy with their everyday routines, drawing kalam patterns to decorate the ground before their houses. At one home, you stood entranced as a woman showed a little girl how to let rice flour fall evenly through her fingers to make the patterns with smooth white lines. The tea shop man was pouring frothy glasses of chai when we arrived. You wanted to walk right back to the kitchen, but I stood waiting for the man to notice me. If we showed him what polite, hard-working girls we were, surely he'd let us work for him again. Maybe pay us money this time. Go away, he shouted. I looked behind us to see whom he was shooing. You, he yelled, get that dog away from the shop. It's a good dog, I began, but the man shook his fist at me, and Kuti growled. I picked him up and held his squirming body tight. Auntie, you cried, and sure enough, Tea-Shop Auntie had opened the kitchen door a crack, and she beckoned. We took the long way around the shop, and I set Kuti down. He settled his head on his forepaws and closed his eyes. Auntie let us in the back door with a slightly frightened smile. You said Rukku liked beads. My irritation at her asking me instead of you vanished when she thrust a bulging bag into my hands. Inside the bag was a beautiful collection of jewel-toned beads, as well as some neatly knotted bundles of twine. Twine is a string. Thanks, I breathed. Look what Auntie gave us, Rukku. You were as dazzled by the rainbow of colour as I was. You settled down on the floor of the shack at once and started making a necklace. Viji, if you can watch the stove, maybe I could quickly show your sister some bead tricks. Of course, Auntie. She sat with you, showing you ways to tie pretty knots and beads braid strands together. Every now and then she shot a worried look at the door, but the tea-shop man didn't bother us. You were so happy, Rukku. I felt reluctant to leave, but after a while my worry took over and I told you we had to go find a job. I refilled our water bottle and Tea-Shop Auntie pressed a plastic bag with bananas and vadais into my hands. No, Auntie, you already gave us too much. Don't argue with your elders. She insisted on giving me something else. A raincoat. Belonged to my daughter. Her eyes flickered across the picture of the young girl next to the picture of the goddess. Gave away most of her things when she died. But this was new, and I just couldn't part with it until now. Thanks, Auntie. I tried to squeeze all my gratitude into those two small words. As we left, Tea-Shop Auntie walked outside with us. Try your luck there. It's where the rich people live, and she pointed at a distant temple rising above the forest of buildings. Maybe somebody will want a maid, she said, but don't be too trusting. The world's not always a kind place for two poor girls like you. The back alley wasn't as deserted as it had been the day before. A girl dressed in rags pawed at the hem of my skirt as we walked by. Give me something, she whined. I have to look after my brother. See him? And she pointed at a small boy, stark naked, who was sleeping behind her. Had they been runaways too? Kasukudunga aka, she wailed. Give me some coins, sister. We don't have any money, I said. It was almost true. Money? You patted the money pouch at my waist. I shouldn't have lied. You never did. We have no money to spare, Rukku. And your eyes welled up as you gazed into the girl's tear-stained face. Okay. I untied the drawstrings, but before I could take a coin from the pouch, the girl's bony fingers clamped tight on it, and she yanked it out of my grasp. No, that's everything we have. The girl scampered out of reach, her bare heels disappearing as she turned a corner, her brother forgotten. Kuti yipped and darted after her, but I called him back. Even if I'd felt less tired, I couldn't have chased a girl with such a pitiful voice and such haunting eyes. And besides, our money wouldn't have lasted much longer. We needed a job. I looked for work in a few of the tiny shops we passed on our way to the temple. Roadside shacks selling brightly coloured clothes and cheap saris, fruit stalls humming with flies, and a fragrant flower shop near the temple where two girls sat weaving garlands of jasmine. Remember, a garland is those strings of flowers that they wear around their necks. I saw more people that one day than I'd seen our whole lives, but nobody noticed us. We were in plain sight, but we were invisible. It's as if nobody cared to notice them. Sweat was rolling down our backs, plastering our blouses to our skin, when we finally reached the temple. It was in a quiet part of the city, with tree-lined avenues and large houses surrounded by walls. One wall had bits of broken glass set into the concrete on the top, so no one could climb over without shredding their palms, without cutting their palms. Pretty, you said, reaching for the multicolored shards of glass through which the sunlight skipped. Pretty. No, Rukku, awa. Near the temple we found a house set in the middle of a sprawling garden. I could spot every kind of fruit tree, mango, coconut, banana, jackfruit, and even a short orange tree. The wall was low enough to look over, and it bore a sign with the house's name, Lakshmi Ilam. Look, Rukku, these people are so rich, they have time to choose a name for their house, I said. They must want even more money too, because they've named their house after the goddess of wealth, Lakshmi. Kuti ran up to the wrought iron gate, which swung open invitingly. Our feet crunched on the gravel path leading to the front door. We'd only taken a few steps when an old man picking oranges called out, "Aye, what do you think you're doing?" He looked us up and down, and I wish I'd smoothed our hair and skirts before entering the compound. "I'm looking for work, sir, and—" "Beggars?" He waved a fruit at us. "Get lost." "We're not begging," I said angrily. "I just told you I'm looking for work. I can do housework and—" "You think rich people are going to give you jobs if you want to wander into their compounds with a mangy dog tagging along?" the old man said. "I'm the gardener here. Let me tell you what they'll do. They'll call the police, that's what." "Police?" "Yes," he said, "so keep out." A noise came from a shed at the end of the driveway, and to my surprise a car drove out. "House," you pointed. "House for cars?" "That's called a garage," the gardener said. The car pulled up to the front door of the mansion, and a woman in a sequin-studded sari stepped out, and a girl in a lacy white dress skipped out from behind her. "Look," she cried, "what a cute doggie." "Get out!" The gardener shook his fist at us, like he'd been trying to chase us away. "Stay away from that dog, Prabha," the woman said. "It's a stray." I took your hand and walked briskly out the gate, and something whizzed past my head. I ducked. Shocked, the gardener would go so far as to throw a stone just to keep up his pretense. The object landed with a thud. It wasn't a stone. It was an orange. I looked back, wondering if I should thank him, but the gate clanged shut. "Might as well eat it. It's not big enough to share with the boys," I mused. You smiled. We sat in the shade of a gnarled rain tree. Kuti settled his head on his forepaws and watched us. I gave you the orange. "Ah," you murmured, cradling it in your hands as if it was the most beautiful thing ever, and you ran the tips of your fingers across its waxy peel. You turned it around and around as if it looked different from every angle. "Ah," you repeated. Then you raised the orange to your nose, took a long sniff, and then gave it to me. I took the orange and turned it around, just as you had. It glowed like a small pale sun. I felt its weight, its perfect ripeness, not too soft and not too firm, and I breathed in its citrus scent. I started to peel it, noticing things I'd never noticed before, how the leathery peel isn't colored the same all the way through, and how the papery sections inside feel like leafy veins, and how the pulp is shaped like raindrops. When at last I placed a section in my mouth, I could hear it burst as my teeth met the flesh, squeezing the juice out onto my tongue. Tart at first, a little bit sour, tart, and then sweet. Everything else melted away except for the taste, the smell, the feel of the fruit on my tongue. I ate the fruit slowly, the way you like to do things. Until then, I thought it was a sad thing that you were sometimes slower than the rest of us. But that day, I realized that slow can be better than fast. Like magic, you could stretch time out when we needed it, so that a moment felt endless, so the taste of half an orange could last and last. Right, we'll stop there and we'll continue with the next few chapters another day. I hope you enjoyed it. Please remember to give the thumbs up, to like it, and make comments, ask questions. And I will post up the new vocabulary words. There are lots of new words today. And remember that the more the words of a language you know, the better you get at speaking it and reading it. So practice reading and learning the new vocabulary words. And next time we'll find out how the girls survive. Do they find work? But at least we know that they have found a place to sleep on the abandoned bridge and have met Mutu and Arul, who have been kind to them. So bye-bye till next time.